Good afternoon. I'm Supervisor Norman Yee, representing District 7. I want to thank you all for being here today. We are here today unified for children and families. Yes. We are also honored to have not only Mayor Lee, but Assembly Member Tom Amiano, who's on his way to join us today. Thank you. This is a special day for San Francisco children. We will be introducing the final version of our legislation, the Children and Families First Initiative. Today at the Board of Supervisors meeting, the final product was the result of many community meetings and much input from my colleagues and from Mayor Lee's office. The reward for working together is a strong piece of legislation supported by not only by me, but all 11 members of the Board of Supervisors and Mayor Lee. San Francisco's population, total children population, is approximately 109,000 children. 56,000 of those attend our public schools. There are about 35,000 children between the age of 0 and 5. This is why we are asking voters to support the Children and Families Initiative, which brings amendments to our city charter consisting of 4 major elements. Number 1, reauthorization of our Children and Youth Fund, first passed by voters in 1991 and again in 2001. Number 2, reauthorization of the Public Education Enrichment Fund, passed by voters in 2005 or 2004, one of those dates. Number 3, modification of the rainy days reserves to become 2 reserves. And we'll have some elaboration on that later. Number 4, asking for the creation of the Children and Families Council, chaired by Mayor Lee and Superintendent Carranza. In the development of this legislation, we have several goals to consider. Strengthening the existing Children's Fund and the Public Education Enrichment Fund. Increase resources. Allow for more flexibility to meet additional needs for children and youth. Increase efficiency and provide better oversight. And the highlights of the Children and Families Initiative include many things, but I'll give just a few. The creation of the Children and Families Plan that puts children first in providing city services and infrastructure issues, including housing. Number 2, creation of the Community Advisory Committee for the Office of Early Care and Education. Number 3, the creation of the Oversight and Advisory Committee for the Department of Children, Youth, and their Families. Number 4, allow for original preschool for all program to serve children 0 to 5, with priority continuing to be the 4-year-olds. Next is expanding the definition of those that can be served, including transitional age youth. Number 6, increasing the set aside for children services by 33.3% over a 4-year period. Number 7, increasing the amount of funding to our public schools by at least $6 million. Number 8, rainy day reserves will provide San Francisco Unified School District the school rainy day reserve and allow the district to have oversight for this allocation. The children's population of between 0 and 18 in San Francisco is only 13.4% of our population, making it the lowest in the United States. The city must do better for our children and families. And this legislation will get us closer to doing a better job. So first I want to bring up to speak is Mayor Lee to kick off today's program. I would like to invite him up and share a few remarks. And thank you for being here today and supporting this crucial measure. Mayor Lee.
Thank you, Supervisor Yee. Hello, everybody. Happy summer. Happy summer in San Francisco. Well, this is to introduce something that the board has been working on, certainly Supervisor Yee, his cohorts, city leaders, a lot of family and neighborhood advocates, people that have been working on this for a long, long time. And the result is that we have a united front here in the city. It is Children and Families First initiative for the November ballot. And thanks, very good, thanks to the entire board unanimously voting in support of this. Their work is reflected in the hard work that our offices did together to produce something that's going to be a shared policy agenda for the entire city focused on our children, our youth, and our families. You know, we have one of the best public school systems, I say, not only in California, perhaps in the nation.
Right.
Thanks to this incredible school board and leadership we have and the staff we have. And we have been making record investments in our school district, never letting the episodes of the state or the national government affect us too negatively. It always will affect us, but we've attempted to recover as best we can. That's why we have one of the best schools. And schools not just in the classroom. It's what happens before and after. It's with the families. It's in our neighborhoods. And that's why both of these incredible sources have come together to support, but it's in the backdrop of a school system that's improving all the time. In fact, not only do they enjoy record investments from the city, they are enjoying record private investments as well for the incredible numbers of foundations that are putting their money in to make sure we complement it from the private sector, like the Benioffs and Salesforce Foundation with their contributions to the middle school initiative, but it complements all the other private foundations that are working closely with us because they believe that early education and sustained support at the school system is going to help all the families improve in the city, and will also give people the skill sets for the 21st century. I want to say that this Children and Families First initiatives bring together two incredible other sources, the Children's Fund and the Public Education Enrichment Fund. These are incredible funds, and they need to be renewed. But guess what? We haven't just renewed them. In this initiative, we're improving them. We're adding more dollars, we're creating more accountability, and we've heard many parents throughout the city, they've never heard of a lot of our programs. They don't know where to enroll, so they scan it off to private schools and try to struggle with that. We want them in our system. We want to capture and provide them all of the contributions that our city's been giving, but also all the great programs that we have. We want to make sure all the families that deserve our support get it in a way in which they can navigate and find their way through the system. We've heard from parents across the city, let's have a more efficient system for all these wonderful services. Let's not have me find out when my kids are in their teens and I could have had them in all these programs when they're preteens. There are so many great programs that we've created. We got to get the word out. We got to have a system that I think is reflected in this initiative to make more efficiencies, to have families navigate it easier, to increase it at the times in which, not just when the city is plentiful, but when the entire city wants to enjoy even more investments in our education and all the enrichment programs that we have. So I'm very happy to join the entire Board of Supervisors, elected officials, and certainly Tom Amiano, who really started a lot of this back in the days. When he was supervisor, he began that Children's Fund. I give him a lot of credit for this because it's been his spirit that's been in the room, along with so many advocates working together. They're pushing very hard to make sure we have the best programs that we have. And we have the opportunity to have this conversation with the public this November. We are going to have the best children enrichment programs in the world right here in San Francisco. Raise your families here. Get your kids into public schools. This is going to be the best city for all families and children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. And I guess he did a pretty good job in introducing the next speaker, Assemblyman Tom Mamiano. As most of you know, he's a former educator. I guess he's always going to be considered an educator and always a person that cares about children. And the only reason why we're even talking about reauthorizing anything is because of this guy, Tom Mamiano.
Hey. Thank you very much for all the very kind words. This is so cool. I was going to photobomb the mayor, but I thought we'll wait on that. No, I was talking to Commissioner Wins and remembering 24 years ago, just got on the school board. This woman came in, it was like a tornado. Her name was Margaret Brodkin, and she presented this idea to me, and I thought, well, I like it. You know, I taught school for a number of years, and I saw where there were so many deficiencies, not based on motivation or the calling of the teachers, but on resources. So sometimes under the Reagan-Bush years, you know, they would just take all the money away from a school district, basically have a skeleton crew, so to speak, and yet we were still educating kids, but we needed to prioritize. They always say kids are the future. Well, kids are now, too. And so, and we got some pushback. Oh, well, you know, it's a carve-out. But, you know, to me, it was a compensation for all the years that there were no resources for children, parks, education, libraries. And so that was quite gratifying. And so I'm glad to be here today to restart the engine, so to speak. Gentlemen, start your engines on our public school system. I know business community always has criticisms and interest in the school district. I think that Superintendent Carranza has done a great job working with our mayor on this and where the priorities were. So when businesses say this, and that, we have to say, if you want a world-class school system to produce world-class employees for your entrepreneurial efforts, then we need you to also be helpful and to understand. And that's why I really want to make a very big thank you and testimonial to Warren Hellman, because around the enrichment program, Prop H, you know, he was the lion tamer. He was the guy who herded the cats. He would curse and scream. He showed me his tattoo once. And he got other titans of business to either go neutral or support the bill, which was a miracle. None of us could have done that. And he was the bank. And we had a stunning victory on that, funding sports and libraries and arts and preschool. It was just a wonderful thing. And in Sacramento, the town that at that time forgot, they often wonder how we did this. And then the other thing was the rainy day fund. You know, I knew what it was like to get a layoff notice. I always used to say I'd rather wear a pink slip than get one, but that's from the Amiano Museum of Jokes. And how painful it was, and how kids really related to a certain teacher, and then that teacher was gone. And what did that say to that kid? So we did put that trigger in that helped with our layoff situation. And we were one of the few places in California that really did not have large layoffs in the way and the scale that LA and other cities did have. So it's been a great journey. Without the Board of Supervisors and the school district working in partnership, none of this could happen. And that was really my goal when I got elected. Once a teacher, always a teacher. I knew that there was this arbitrary space between school difference governance and the city's governance, and that they really needed to come together. I'd like to say I think that district elections helped that a lot, because when the supervisors got elected to a certain district, all of a sudden the parents were coming to them and saying, you know, we need a crossing guard. We're losing our teachers. There's no heat in the classroom. And in the initial class that represented, and I think it was in the year 2000, all came screaming to me, what do I do? What do I do? I don't know anything about schools. I said, well, learn. And they did. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. So I want to acknowledge, I mean, this is really a collaboration, and thank you for the school board members that are here, and including Vice President Emily Marase, Kim Sri Mafis, Hydra Mendoza, Joe Wins. And as was mentioned already, there's 11 supervisors that have signed on as co-authors, and I'm so proud to have all that support. And most of them are here, so let me acknowledge them real quickly. President David Chu, Supervisor Tang, Supervisor Kim, Supervisor Avalos, Supervisor Mar, Supervisor Wiener, And I bet you they're all around somewhere. But right now, I want to bring up two of the supervisors that really worked hard with my office to put this all together. Their staff just were incredible in putting a lot of time and crafting something that is so strong that I believe that it's going to turn the tide around when it comes to children staying in San Francisco. So let me bring up both Supervisors Avalos and Supervisor Kim to say a few words. Supervisor Avalos.
Thank you, Norman. I just want to say it's been an honor to work with you in helping to craft the Children and Family Initiative. It hasn't always been easy, but it's one that we set out to do together. And really, by who's out here on the steps of City Hall, including the mayor, the school district, members of the foundation community, children, youth, and family who will be receiving services, and providers who are doing services in the city, we have done a really great effort to pull together a wonderful initiative that really is going to look at generations to come for San Francisco, how we can really make this city work 26 years into the future for a whole new generation of people who will see from cradle to adulthood a pathway for opportunity, for education, for recreation, for health care, for housing services. All these things are going to be in the Children and Family Initiative. Also, a great sources of funding for the school district to do its work as well. All of this has been under the rubric of that we care about kids in San Francisco. And I'm going to be very brief. I wanted to, I actually opened the process of drafting the Children's Fund part of the Children and Family Initiative by quoting Sitting Bull, and I will do that again because I think we've lived up to this quote. Let us put our minds together and see what life we can make for our children. All across San Francisco, from the mayor's office, the Board of Supervisors, the school district, foundation community, the service provider community, the LGBT community, we have done just that. And I just want to say thank you for the effort. It's been really great to be part of this process. And let's move on to the ballot and win. Thanks.
So I just realized I'm standing on the stage with 6 other school board presidents. That is pretty amazing. Kim Shree-Moffice, Hydra Mendoza, Tom Amiano, Norman Yee, myself, and Eric Marr have all served on the leadership of the Board of Education. And it is pretty amazing to have all these. And Jill wins. I counted her in our group of 7, and it's amazing to see such strong political leadership for our public schools here in San Francisco. The Public Education Enrichment Fund is something that I've been particularly involved with since it first passed, as then Supervisor Tom Yano had championed back in March 2004 with a strong community of youth and public education leaders. And there are a couple of things that I just want to say. Right now, California is the 9th largest economy in the world. We educate 1 out of every 8 children in the United States. You would think that with our combined wealth, that our children and students would be receiving the best education in the world. But yet, California ranks last in teacher-to-student ratio. California ranks last in librarian-to-student ratio. California ranks last in guidance counselor-to-student ratio. In 2008, California is ranked 38th in the country in per-pupil spending in K-12 schools. And in 2012, California was ranked 47. Only 75% of California students graduate from high school in 4 years. In San Francisco, we have seen the impact of these state and federal policies. Since the implementation of our new graduation requirements in 2009, SFUSD has seen $77 million in cuts from the state. And nearly half of our SFUSD sophomores and juniors were not on track to graduate at that point. And that is why the Public Education Enrichment Fund is so important here in San Francisco. We here in the city and county have stood up and said, if the state and federal government will not take responsibility for our kids, the city and county of San Francisco will. And this is what PEEF has done for us in the last 10 years. 84 professional art teachers that work in our K-12 system, 59 librarians when we used to have 3 to even one librarian in our elementary school system, 230 athletic coaches, 34 PE teachers, 44 student support professionals, peer resources in our high schools, student nutrition programs and wellness centers, and translation services for the majority of our parents that come from immigrant communities in SFUSD. So first, I want to thank the voters of San Francisco for voting for this in 2004. We have shown in the past 10 years that SFUSD knows how to make the right investments to make the right outcomes, and we have seen the outcomes of that 10 years of work. And now in its reauthorization, I'm proud to say that we are reforming PEEF to make it even stronger. We have removed the 25% trigger. We are not taking money away from our kids. We have removed in-kind services, something that has devalued this fund. We have extended the sunset date from 10 to 25 years because we know that this is something that voters will continue to support. And finally, we have changed the rainy day fund, also that's something that came from then Supervisor Tom Amiano, to allow SFUSD to decide when they need these funds without sending pink slips to our teachers. Yay. So, this work could not have happened if not for all of the community folks that have been here that have advocated for this funding. And I want to recognize them and all of the young leaders that are here as well. And I also want to, in particular, thank Supervisor Yee and Supervisor Avalos in this reauthorization. It has certainly been a roller coaster ride, but it was certainly worth all of that effort. Thank you. And it is my pleasure to bring up our next speaker, who will be representing the San Francisco Board of Education, our Vice President, Emily Marase.
Emily. All right, where are our public school supporters? SFUSD is in the house. I'd like to ask my colleagues to come on up. Commissioner Kim Shree-Moffice, Commissioner Jill Wins, Commissioner Hydra Mendoza, and a couple of students. So I'm here to talk about the importance of the Public Education Enrichment Fund. For over 5 years, California has been struggling in the face of 25% budget cuts to our schools. Most were forced to decimate programs in sports, libraries, arts, music, student health centers, almost anything outside of the core subjects. But in San Francisco, we were able to protect these programs through the voter-approved PEEF. As a result of the PEEF investments in the past decade, there are libraries and librarians in every school. Book circulation has topped 1 million books a year. Every student has access to PE, arts, and music classes. Middle school and high school students have access to robust athletics programs with over a quarter of our students participating in at least one sport. And just a few examples of the PEEF impact. Rayshawn Jones is an youth outreach worker at the PEEF-funded Washington High School Wellness Center who has helped dozens of peers navigate teen health issues. Let's hear it for Ray. Esmeralda Mancia, a graduate of Burton High School, is heading to San Francisco State University this fall as a result of her leadership experience in the PEEF-funded Peer Resources Program. And Katie Regalia, right here, Mission High School graduate, was recruited for Cal's first ever recruited sand volleyball team, earned over $15,000 in athletic scholarships because she excelled not only in academics, but also in sports, directly funded by the PEEF. These are just a few students touched by the Public Education Enrichment Fund. Over the past decade, this fund has touched hundreds and thousands of our city's children, fostering a love of school and learning and propelling them to college and career success. On behalf of my colleagues at the Board of Education, my sincere thanks to Mayor Lee, Supervisors Norman Yee, Jane Kim, and John Avalos for authoring this measure, to all 11 supervisors for co-sponsoring the legislation, to the service providers who came out to advocate, and to the voters of San Francisco for investing in our public schools. Thank you.
So I know we're running a little long. We started late. So let me bring up our next speaker, whose office also made a big contribution to forming this piece of legislation. Supervisor Eric Marr.
Thank you. I have the honor of preceding the leader from Coleman Advocates, Neva Walker, but let me just in my short time say that when the Coleman Advocates organizers and Margaret Brodkin and Jill Wins and others 20 years ago first brought this to the Board of Supervisors, there was zero support for this at City Hall at the Board of Supervisors. 10 years ago when Tom Amiano and a number of us crafted the PEEF Prop H for our children and schools, there was very little also support. I think the reason why we have a strong children's fund and a PEEF that supports sports, music, arts, and learning support is because of grassroots coalitions and coalition building from the beginning from Coleman Advocates and a diverse coalition of communities. As we build on this momentum from 20 years ago and 10 years ago, I just want to say as a parent, I'll be really proud to stand side by side with the youth commissioners and the youth leaders that will come out of this campaign and build for the future. But also many of the school district and Children, Youth, and Families Department and other advocates, but especially the grassroots coalitions from all over our neighborhoods, parents and youth in the lead as we build for our future. I'm really proud that in November we'll make sure that everybody knows that San Francisco is a city for children and families. Thank you for helping to build this coalition.
Next, I want to bring up a few more speakers from the community, and they are the integral part, the very important part that's going to lead us up to victory. So our next speaker will be Neva Walker, Executive Director of Coleman Advocates. Yes, give it up.
Thank you, Supervisor. Good afternoon, everyone. This is an incredible day for the children, youth, and families here in San Francisco. Once again, San Francisco is poised to lead by example by putting the children and our families first, especially with backing it up with the necessary resources. The Children and Families First initiative will come before voters this November. While it is the reauthorization, as you heard earlier, of the two funds for children and youth, it is the strongest possible measure. The initiative itself will provide more stable funding for school-based and early education programs through the Public Education Enrichment Fund and a significant increase in the Children and Youth Fund. I'm excited to say, as was said before, we're providing now necessary funds for disconnected transitional youth. The initiative ensures that both of these funds will be placed for the next 25 years. So our young people will lead the effort in 25 years to reauthorize it. I am proud to also say that Coleman Advocates has led the Community Funding Coalition for the last 2 years, with many of those folks here with us today. Thank you for your service. In addition, would like to take the opportunity to thank those supervisors that have championed here at City Hall, especially Supervisors Yee, Avalos, and Kim. Would also like to thank Supervisors Marr and Campos for their leadership, along with each one of the 11 supervisors who have also signed and to make sure that this will be passed unanimously, as well as the mayor and the Board of Education that sometimes gets forgotten, but we thank you for your leadership also. We are proud of the work that we have done together, making a strong statement about our long-term commitment to our next generation of San Francisco, to make sure that all of our children and youth have an opportunity to be successful and call this city home. Lastly, remember that your child is not just your child. The child that you see on the bus stop waiting to go to school is not just that woman's child. The little boy who's playing in the middle school basketball court is not just his father's son, nor are our graduating seniors just the proud children of their parents. Each one of the children here in San Francisco belongs to each one of us, and each one of us have a responsibility to ensure their success for the next generation. And so I look forward to seeing you this November.
Thank you. Next person up. By the way, for some of you reporters that will be around, can I get there's some youth here that are willing to be interviewed if you want to ask some questions about the impact of these initiatives. Can you raise your hands wherever you are? That one. Go on. And of course, everybody else. Next person I would like to introduce Monica Walters. She's the Executive Director of WE Children's Services. Our charter amendment is broad in who it serves from 0 to 24. Today we have Monica Walters, who will talk more about the importance of early education for all funding.
Good afternoon, everyone. As a representative of the Child Care Planning and Advisory Council of San Francisco, and also on behalf of WE Children's Services, the largest early Head Start provider in San Francisco, and also on behalf of all those wonderful, dedicated, hardworking early childhood education providers in San Francisco, and many of them are out in the audience here today. Woo! I would like to offer sincere thanks and appreciation to our mayor, our Board of Supervisors, and all of our community colleagues who are serving children and youth for an outstanding effort bringing this remarkable legislation forward. I would especially like to thank Supervisors Avalos, Kim, and Yee for their tremendous leadership and insight in helping to bring us to this day of celebration. We are truly making history today. We are choosing to provide greater insurance for our youngest residents, birth to 5, to have access to quality early childhood education and safe, nurturing care, while also helping their parents to work, continue their education, and pursue career goals. These are our kids who will be the succeeding graduates of our San Francisco Unified School District. But without early care and education, without that important first step, for school readiness, for emotional, social, educational, and health opportunities for services like this, they will not be successful in our school system. Without this important investment in our early care and education, infants, toddlers, and preschoolers are not prepared for school, and their parents are not supported, and our entire community suffers. So today we know that these funds, dedicated to fill a critical need for our children 0 to 5, are going to make a huge difference in the future of our city. We are including 3-year-olds in our Preschool for All initiative, which is a huge investment in more and more children receiving that quality that they need to be successful as learners, lifelong learners. We are supporting their parents so that they can pursue their dreams. Today, as we ask ourselves the question, how are the young children doing in San Francisco? Today we can say with far greater certainty, they are doing well. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And next up is, before I do that, thank you, Supervisor Campos, for joining us. And also, I want to acknowledge a few people. Maria Sue, Executive Director of DCYF, Department of Children, Youth and Families. Also, Laura Kluma, Executive Director of First 5. Barbara Carson, Executive Director of the Office of Early Care and Education. And Chris Amastra from the San Francisco Unified School District over here, and Laura Moran, Chief of Staff for the school district. So next up is the Youth Commissioner, Eric Wu. Thank you for coming and joining us. We need a youth voice here.
Thank you. On the behalf of the San Francisco Youth Commission, let me express my deepest gratitude for all the hard work and advocacy that staff for the mayor's office and the superintendent's office, members of the Board of Supervisors, leaders in our community have dedicated for the Family and Children First initiative. Today, we gather here to reaffirm our values and our commitment and to ensure that future generations of young people will succeed for decades to come. You know, for the past 2 years, young people have always been deeply engaged in the making of a better and more robust children's fund and PEEF. In countless meetings and town halls, in roundtables and in rallies, young people were there to make their voice heard And that would not have been possible if the whole process was not guided by that fundamental principle that decisions made about us, with us, is for us. This initiative is the very best investment that city has ever made for our daughters and our sons, our grandkids, and our great-great-great-grandkids, because not only does it stretch the safety net of social services for our youth, for more youth, but it also, I made a speech for this, but I'm blanking out. But it also builds on our commitment to provide early childhood education to every child so that they're not already behind in their first day of school. To provide sports, library, music, and art for every student in public schools so that they get an enhanced and well-rounded education, and to provide social services and programs for all our youth across our neighborhoods and our communities. So today, if you're feeling the same passion and energy and love for our youth, then you need to stand up in November and support our Family and Children First initiative. Thank you.
Good job, Eric. Yeah, let's stand up for children. Next up, last speaker, I would like to introduce Rasheen Jones, youth outreach worker for Washington High School, and he has a lot of passion. Here he goes.
So, hi, I'm Rasheen Jones. I go to George Washington High School, and I'm a youth outreach worker, other known as a YOW. And basically, as a youth outreach worker, I offer like information and often teach classes about certain. Am I talking into the mic? Oh, certain like teen health issues and wellness. And I believe that wellness is like a really good program, wellness center, and being a YOW, it's a really good program, and I'm really glad it's around and it's funded, because without it, a lot of people wouldn't feel like a safe place at school, other than home, and some people don't have that at home. So I feel like it's really helpful. Wellness also plans a lot of school-wide events and helps out more than just the YOWs. It helps the kids across the school district, because there's one at every school, I believe, and it also helps a lot of teachers in some ways. And I'm really appreciative for it. I'm really glad it exists, because it helps me a lot, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And so thank you.
Thank you, Rasheen. I also want to acknowledge Candace Wong. She was here. She's the president of the CPAC, Child Care Advisory and Planning Council. Well, I want to thank you all for being here today. It takes every single one of us to see this charter amendment through, and we know we can count on San Franciscans to continue supporting the youth for generations to come. So once again, reporters, if you'd like to speak to some of the youth up here, please do so. They have a lot to say. Thank you for joining us today. And in November, we're going to announce a great victory. Thank you very much.